everybody, it's Raven Maureen, and today I'm going to show you how to make McCall's 8380. Now this is a vintage pattern from the 1940s. How cool is that? So the pattern instructions and the actual pattern pieces have not changed from the 1940s for this pattern, but do not worry, I'm going to take you step by step so that you can make this beautiful dress. So grab your sewing tools and let's get started.
So this pattern is a vintage pattern with just one view, and when we turn the envelope over, there are fabric suggestions for cotton blends, gingham, linen, and shantung, and the instructions also say that you will need a 9-inch zipper as well. And I would also make sure to pay attention to the body measurements and the finished garment measurements as well. And I also want to add that because this pattern does include the original pattern pieces and instructions from the 1940 edition, that at first glance this may look very intimidating, but it absolutely helps to cut every notch and complete all of your markings, because it will just make your sewing process go a lot smoother. And you'll also notice that the notches are numbered. I don't want you to focus on that since I'll be walking you through each step. Now let's move on to the pattern pieces.
Pattern piece number 1, this is your bodice piece, your front bodice piece. It says waist front. You're actually going to cut one. I would go ahead and interface this. Pattern piece number 2, this is your bodice back. Cut one and go ahead and interface this part right here as well. Pattern pieces 3 and 4, this is your back armhole facing and your front armhole facing. It says cut one. I also recommend that you cut a set of interfacing as well. Pattern pieces number 9 and 10, this is your set-in belt front, and 10 is your set-in belt back. This says cut 2. I would cut 2 and then also cut 1 pair of interfacing. You're going to need pattern piece number 5, which is your skirt front. Pattern piece number 6, which is your skirt back. Pattern piece number 12, which is your belt bow. Pattern piece number 11, your shoulder bow. Pattern piece number 7, this is your pocket section, cut 1. Pattern piece number 8, this is your pocket section number 2, and you're going to cut 2, or cut 1, excuse me.
First, we are going to work on pattern piece number 1, and don't forget to interface that side right there. And we are going to work on sewing down our pleats right here where those dots are. And so go ahead and pinch your fabric like how you see I'm doing here, and then grab your pins and put them in place. And then you're going to do a couple of stitches to baste down that side right there. And then we are going to move on to the dart, which is on the same pattern piece. Go ahead and complete that at your sewing machine. And then we are going to take pattern piece number 2, the back bodice piece, and place it right sides together on top of pattern piece number 1. Starting on the left side, we are going to pin those sides together right there. And on the right side, we will pin at the dot going up to the top of that section right there, and that's on the side with the dart. And then at the shoulders, we are going to pin those 2 seams in place as well. And back stitching and pivoting at those corners, we are going to sew those areas that we pinned down at our table using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and once again stopping at that dot right there. Go ahead and press that seam open, and then on the left side we are going to clip into that corner, and we will do the same at the shoulder seam. And you want to make sure that you press those seams open as well, and do a quick fit check on the bodice to make sure that it works for you. At this point, we are going to fold down this facing and make sure you finish it. The actual instructions call for this to be sewn under in a hem sort of fashion, but because I have a serger and for the sake of time, I decided to finish those edges. And so once you have pinned that down and given it a good press, you may take it to your sewing machine and edge stitch that hem for your bodice. So this is what your bodice should look like so far. I went ahead and added a clothing tag just for a little professional finish. Now we're going to work on our armhole facings.
Okay, so we have pattern piece number 3 and pattern piece number 4. Pattern piece number 3 is the front armhole facing. And if you notice here that there are double notches for the front armhole facing for notch number 6, which is very important because typically in modern patterns you find that there's a single notch on the front and a double notch on the back. This is actually a situation where this is the opposite. So you want to pay attention to which pattern pieces that you have in front of you. And so again, the front armhole facing has the double notches here. The back armhole facing has notch number 7 is a single notch. And then there are 2 notches here that we are actually going to connect and sew together. And then another set of notches here that we are going to sew together. So I'm going to take these pattern pieces away. And I'm going to put these pattern pieces right sides together. And hopefully you transferred all your notches, that way this is much easier. So we're going to take this to our machine and we're going to sew this at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we're going to come back to our table.
After pressing the armhole facings open, go ahead and pin it to the armhole of your bodice. And we are going to sew that down at a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance at our sewing machine. And go ahead and clip in those curves right there. Once you give it a good press, go ahead and understitch the facing as well.
So now that we have understitched the armhole, I went ahead and finished those edges, and then I pinned it, pressed and pinned it all the way around, and we're going to finish this edge the same way that we did our neckline.
Next, at the shoulder, we are going to make a gathering stitch using the widest stitch length, so make 2 rows right there. And then we are going to pull this thread to have a gathering effect. And then we are going to stitch in the ditch to hold that gather in place right there. This is pattern piece number 5, which is our front skirt piece. And this should have been cut on the fold. Go ahead and sew a line down for that pleat, and then finish those edges for pattern piece number 5 and 6. Once you have completed your pleat, go ahead and press it open and baste it. Next, we are going to sew together pattern pieces 5 and 6. So on the right side, go ahead and put your first pin about 8 inches down at that first dot. And then on the left side, about 6 inches down from the top should be your other dot. And go ahead and start pinning there and pin all the way down your skirt pieces. Go ahead and sew those pieces together and press your seams open so we can get ready to do our pocket.
So you're going to take your 2 pocket pieces. Pattern piece number 8 has 2 notches. Pattern piece number 7 has a single notch. And what you're going to do is you are going to go ahead and pin and sew from this dot all the way around and up through this dot right here. at a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so now we are going to add in our pocket. Once we've sewn it down, we are going to turn it right side out, and then right sides together, open up this piece right here, and you should have 2 notches on this side here, 1 notch on that side, and you're going to match up the notches on your pocket to the notches on your skirt. And this dot right here should match up. And then match the single notch on this side here. And so it looks a little odd, but your pocket should be right side out on the right side of your skirt. That way when you sew it up, it'll push everything to the wrong side of the skirt. So let's take that to our sewing machine and do that now. We're gonna stop at the small dot right here.
I'm going to raise my needle after I stop at the small dot, and I'm going to pivot to the other side of the pocket sack, and I'm going to continue sewing down that seam.
So we have finished sewing our pocket. So now we are going to push that pocket sack out. And now we have a pocket.
Once your pocket is added, sew 2 rows of gathers around the entire skirt. And don't forget to baste your pocket pouch to the front of your skirt along with that pleat as well. Set the skirt to the side, and we're going to work on pattern piece 9 and 10. And on the short notched ends, pin and sew at the machine, and go ahead and press those seams open and attach the uninterfaced waistband to the bodice, making sure to match those seams and notches and the opening as well. And then we're going to take this to the sewing machine and sew this right sides together. And once that is complete, go ahead and press your seams towards the bottom hem and grab your skirt so that now we can attach it. Begin gathering your skirt by pulling the thread. I highly recommend using Wonder clips for this part, since this is a wide area of fabric that needs to be gathered. Again, make sure the notches, the seams, and the openings are all matched up. And then we're going to take this to our sewing machine and sew it at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And once you're finished with that, give your skirt a really good press, and your skirt seam should be pressed upward. And we are going to attach our zipper. Now, the pattern calls for different types of finishings. You can do snaps, buttons, any of that. But for this tutorial, we will be using a zipper. Go ahead and sew those teeth face down. Using your zipper foot, carefully sewing one side of the zipper tape to the fabric, and then going ahead and doing that for the other side as well. So now that the zipper is installed, I have gone ahead and I have also tacked down the zipper tape as well. And you can also edge stitch the zipper if you like. That way it doesn't get caught on anything while you're wearing it or while you're trying to put it on. And this is super helpful, and you probably want to use your zipper foot for this as well. So now that the zipper installation is fully complete, we are going to work on completing our waistband. And so take the interfaced waistband and fold it in on the short side at 5/8 and fold it in on the long side at 5/8 and give it a really good press. And then we are going to attach this to the inside of our waistband and do a slip stitch. And you can do this by hand sewing.
So now we're going to work on the shoulder bow. And this is pattern piece number 11. So there's really, the original instructions call for you to fold it up and like stitch around. I actually think that it would be better if this was folded up like this. And we're gonna take this to our machine and leave like a 2-inch opening right here.
And we're gonna sew around the edges of the bow, making basically a casing. So once you're done sewing the bow, go ahead and turn it right side out and poke out those corners, and you can slip stitch the 2-inch opening closed right there. And then we are going to take our sash and we are going to add it to our shoulder. And we're gonna make 2 bunny ear loops, and we are going to tie one around the other, and we are going to tighten it with a quick little knot there. And there you have it.
So now that we've added the top bow, go ahead and do a fit check. And the bottom bow is supposed to fit on the opposite side of the waist. So if you have your bow on this side, you want your waist bow to be here. So I did a fit check to make sure that this dot placement would work, since it's on this side with the pocket here, and I don't want it to interfere with my pocket, and I wanted to make sure that it was well balanced with the other bow. So go ahead and make your belt bow the same way that you did your shoulder bow. And we are going to tack this onto this dot and take this to your sewing machine and do a stitch line right here. So once you've done that single stitch and you tacked it down, go ahead and make your 2 bunny ears again. And then you have a waist bow as well.
Okay guys, and the last thing you have to do is your hem. So go ahead and finish the hem, and you can press it under twice and then give it a great professional finish, and you're all set.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're not following me already on other social media channels, you can follow me at Raven Maureen right here on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I will see y'all next time. Bye.